Hello everyone! Welcome back to our video tutorial in Math 9. For this video, I will discuss to you about trigonometric ratios of special triangles. Also, I will guide you on how to answer Learning Task 2 in your Learner's Packet Week 2. Okay, so without any further ado, let's start. Engagement Learning Task number 2. Okay, so number 1, the length of the two sides of 30 degrees, 60 degrees, and 90 degrees right triangle are 5 inches and 5 the square root of 3 inches. So find the length of the hypotenuse and the 6 trigonometric ratios. Okay, so gawa muna tayo ng 30, 60, and 90 degrees na right triangle. Ang length daw ng two sides niya ay 5 inches and 5 the square root of 3. So, itong shorter leg natin, so yan ay 5. Ito yung longer leg natin is 5 the square root of 3 inches. Okay, so find the hypotenuse. So, ito yung hypotenuse natin. Kailangan muna natin hanapin bago natin hanapin yung 6 trigonometric ratios niya. Okay, so paano natin hahanapin yung hypotenuse? So, pwede natin gamitin dyan yung concept ng 30, 60, 90 right triangle theorem. Okay, so paano hahanapin ang hypotenuse? So, meron dito. Ayan. So, hypotenuse is equals to 2 times the shorter leg. Dahil given na yung shorter leg natin, which is 5, dodoblehin lang natin yan. At yun yung magiging sukat daw ng hypotenuse natin according dito sa theorem ng 30, 60, 90 degrees triangle. Okay? So, 5 times 2 is equals to 10. So, yun yung magiging hypotenuse natin. Yan. Yan. So, dahil kompleto na yung measurement ng sides ng 30, 60, 90 degrees right triangle natin, pwede na natin kunin yung 6 trigonometric ratios na ng 30 degrees at saka ng 60 degrees. Dahil kompleto na yung measurement ng sides ng 30, 60, 90 degrees right triangle natin, pwede na natin kunin yung 6 trigonometric ratios ng 30 degrees at saka ng 60 degrees. Okay, so unahin muna natin kunin yung 6 trigonometric ratios ng 30 degrees angle. Okay, so dahil ang reference angle muna natin ay si 30 degree angle, yung side na kaharap niya, ito yung opposite, tapos yung side na katabi niya, yun naman yung adjacent. Okay, so yan. So muna unahin natin yung primary trigonometric ratios na 30 degrees. Okay, so syempre gamitin natin yung sa katawa para mas madali. Okay, so for sine 30 degrees, so opposite over hypotenuse. So ang opposite natin ay 5, hypotenuse natin ay 10. So we have 5 over 10. So pwede pa natin ito simplify. And that is equal to 1 half. Sine 30 degrees natin is 1 half. For cosine 30 degrees naman, naman yung gagamitin natin. So cosine is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. So ang adjacent natin is 5 the square root of 3 over hypotenuse natin na 10. Dito pa lang makikita nyo na, pwede na natin ma-simplify si 5 at saka si 10. GCF nilang dalawa ay 5, so pwede natin silang i-divide sa 5, pareho. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, 10 divided by 5 is 2. So, ang mga natira na lang, so we have 1 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 3 dito sa denominator, ang natira na lang ay 2. So, yan na yung answer natin for cosine 30 degrees. For tan 30 degrees, so ito naman si TOA naman yung gagamitin natin, opposite over adjacent. So, ang opposite natin is 5, ang adjacent natin is 5 the square root of 3. So, we have 5 divided by 5 the square root of 3. So, again, as you can see, pwede natin ma-simplify ang 5 at saka yung 5. Okay, so ang GCF nila pareho ay 5. So, pag divide natin yan pareho sa 5. So, 5 divided by 5 is equals 1 and 5 divided by 5 is also 1. Sa numerator, ang natira na lang ay 1. Sa denominator is 1 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 3. Okay, so hindi pa siya yung final answer natin. Bakit? Kasi meron pa siyang radical sign sa denominator. So, kailangan pa natin siyang i-rationalize. Okay, so by multiplying both the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 3. So, 1 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 3 and the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is equals to 3. So, yan yung final answer natin for tan 30 degrees. Okay, susunod naman ay kunin natin yung reciprocal ng sine 30 degrees, which is yung cosecant 30 degrees. So, ang gagawin lang natin is baliktarin lang natin yung mga answer nila. Itong mga nakabox, i-reciprocal lang din natin. Tapos, isi-simplify lang natin kung kailangan. So, for cosecant 30, so, kukunin natin yung reciprocal ng 1 half and that is 2 over 1 or 2. So, yan na yung answer ng cosecant 30. And for cosine 30, ang reciprocal naman niya ay si secant 30. So, babalik rin lang din natin yan. That is 2 over the square root of 3. Para maalis tong radical, kailangan natin siyang i-rationalize by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 3. So 2 times the square root of 3 is 2 the square root of 3, and the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is 3. So the answer is 2 the square root of 3 over 3. For tan 30 naman, ang reciprocal niya is equal tangent 30. So, since ito yung sagot ni tan 30, kukunin lang din natin ulit yung reciprocal. And the reciprocal of this is 3 over the square root of 3. So, i-rationalize lang natin to by multiplying the square root of 3. So, 3 times the square root of 3 is 3 the square root of 3. And the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is 3. So, ito, pwede pa natin siyang i-simplify. So, cancel natin yan. And natira na lang ay the square root of 3. And that is for cotangent 30 degrees. Tapos na tayo sa 6 trigonometric ratios ng 30 degrees angle natin. So, hindi pa tayo tapos dahil meron pa tayong 60 degrees angle na hahanapin. Okay, so this time, ang reference angle naman natin ay 60 degrees angle. Okay, so dahil ito na yung reference angle natin, yung side na kaharap niya, ito na yung opposite natin, at yung katabi niya, yun naman yung adjacent natin. Okay. So, solve muna natin yung primary trigonometric ratios, yung sine, cosine, tan, 60 degrees angle natin. Solve natin si sine using opposite over hypotenuse. Ang opposite natin ngayon ay 5 the square root of 3 and hypotenuse is 10. Okay, so ito, pwede natin ma-simplify si 5 over 10. Pwede natin i-divide sila pareho sa 5. So, 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay, so ang lowest term ng 5 over 10 ay 1/2. Our final answer is the square root of 3 because 1 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 3 over 2. Next, for cosine 60 degrees, adjacent over hypotenuse. Ang adjacent natin is 5, hypotenuse is 10. So, 5 over 10. And lowest term is 1/2. For tan 60 degrees naman, TOA, opposite over adjacent. So, ang opposite natin ay 5 the square root of 3, ang adjacent naman natin ay 5. So, ito, pwede na natin mai-cancel yan. Yan. So, 1 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 3. Dahil wala na matira dito sa baba, 1 na lang, ayan na yung answer natin. Okay, so next, kunin natin yung secondary trigonometric ratios o yung mga reciprocal ng mga to. So, si sine, ang reciprocal niya ay si cosecant 60. So, baliktarin lang natin to. Okay, so 2 the square root of 3. So, i-rationalize natin to para maalis yung radical sign. Multiply it by the square root of 3. So, the answer is 2 the square root of 3 over 3. Okay, so for cosine, ang reciprocal niya ay si secant 60. So, ang reciprocal ng 1/2 ay 2. For tangent 60 naman, ang reciprocal naman niya ay si cotangent 60. So, ang reciprocal ng answer niya is 1 over the square root of 3. Okay, so rationalize natin para maalis yung radical. Multiply natin sa the square root of 3. So, our answer is the square root of 3 over 3. So, next, let's proceed to number 2. Calculates the right triangle side length whose one angle is 45 degrees. So, obviously, 45 yan. So, ang theorem natin dyan ay yung 45, 45, 90 degrees right triangle. Yung hypotenuse daw niya, 7 the square root of 2 inches. So, find the trigonometric ratios. Bago natin hanapin yung trigonometric ratios ng 45 degrees, kailangan muna natin alamin kung ano ang measurement ng kanyang dalawang legs. So, ang makatulong sa atin dyan ay yung concept ng 45, 45, 90 degrees right triangle theorem. Okay, so sabi dito, the legs are congruent. So, ibig sabihin, ito ay pareho yung sukat dapat. So, dahil ang given lang natin dito ay yung hypotenuse, which is 7, the square root of 2. At sabi dito, sa theorem niya, yung hypotenuse daw is equals to the square root of 2 times the leg. So, ibig sabihin, constant na yung the square root of 2. Okay, so anong ibig sabihin? Ang leg natin ay 7. Kasi the square root of 2 times the leg, which is yung 7, ang magiging hypotenuse niya ay 7 the square root of 2. Kaya, yan. So, dahil equal sila pareho, so ito ay 7. So, dahil kompleto na yung measurement ng kanyang mga sides, pwede na natin hanapin yung 6 trigonometric ratios ng 45 degrees angle natin. So, since ito yung reference angle natin, so yung side na kaharap niya, ito yung opposite. Tapos, yung katabing side naman niya, yun yung adjacent. Okay, so hanapin muna natin yung primary trigonometric ratio. So this time, 45 degrees. And of course, makakatulong sa atin si Sokatawa dyan. So, para sa sine 45, ito yung gagamitin natin, si So. Sine is equals to opposite hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse. Ang opposite is 7 over hypotenuse is 7 over 7 the square root of 2. So, dito, pwede na natin lowest term agad-agad itong 7. So, pwede na natin cancel yan. 7 tsaka si 7 is divisible by 7. So, pwede na natin silang i-divide both by 7. So, 7 divided by 7 is 1. And 7 divided by 7 is 1. So, ang natira na lang ay 1 over the square root of 2. Okay? So, hindi pa ito yung final answer natin kasi meron pa siyang radical sign sa denominator. I-rationalize muna natin yan. Multiply natin siya sa the square root of 2. So, 1 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 2. And the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2. For cosine 45 naman, so okay ka. Adjacent over hypotenuse. So, adjacent natin is 7. Hypotenuse natin is 7 the square root of 7 the square root of 2. Ay, katulad na sinabi ko kanina, ang sine 45 at cosine 45 ay same lang yung answer. Kaya, kung anong sagot ni sine, yun din ang sagot natin kay cosine. See? Okay, next. For tan 45 naman, opposite over adjacent. So, 7 over 7, that is 1. Okay, sunod kunin natin yung reciprocal ng sine 45, which is yung cosecant 45 degrees. So, babalik na rin lang natin yung sagot ni sine 45 dito. So, we have 2 the square root of 2. So, i-rationalize natin para maalis natin yung radical sign dito sa denominator. So, multiply natin siya sa the square root of 2. So, 2 times the square root of 2 is 2 the square root of 2 over 2. Then, simplify. So, natira na lang ay the square root of 2. So, since si sine at si cosine, same answer lang sila. So, yung reciprocal nila ay magkatulad lang din. At ang reciprocal ni cosecant, ang reciprocal ni cosine ay si secant. So, ganun din yung answer niya kay cosecant. Okay, so same answer lang din sila. Okay, so for tangent 45 degrees, so ang reciprocal naman ni tangent ay si cotangent. So, ang reciprocal ng 1 is 1. Okay, so that's all for learning task number 2. See you again in my next video. Bye-bye!